Synthaholics, the Stark Metal Podcast.
Welcome to Synthaholics. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. Today, it is just I, Aaron O'Brien, with our very special returning guest, Guy Davis. Hello, Guy.
I'm here.
Hello, Guy.
From Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. Guy, if you haven't heard him on the past shows, which I don't know how you would have missed him because he's been on a zillion of our episodes. He is on the Rocky Mountain Geek Tank podcast, and they also do video of Thursday nights still, right?
Yeah.
I've missed a few of the last Thursday nights because
we have two.
Oh, all right. Well, fair enough. And Guy also is an amazing artist, and he's done a ton of stuff. I got to know him when he was doing the USS Tamberlin. But he's also doing Witches of Flame, and what's the other one? The
Bellatrix Rising, which is the one I'm working on right now.
Yes, and so he is always creating, and he's always doing stuff. And you can find Guy at GS Davis Art on Instagram, on Twitter, and is that the website as well?
Yeah, actually, I've got that. I actually managed to pull off that website. I don't know how in the world I did that.
So check out his stuff and check out Rocky Mountain Geek Tank there. They have a lot of content they put out. Like I said, once a week on Facebook, they usually have a Thursday night live event, which is always fun.
Yep.
So they have all sorts of random topics and they get into.
The only reason I'm not with them right now is because of Picard.
Oh, right. Yeah. Are they watching Picard?
No, they're not. They're waiting for the run.
I see. Yes,
but I'm too hardcore to wait for the run. In fact, I'm really lucky if I wait till 7 a.m. So, I mean,
you're like waking up 6:30. Nobody's up yet. You're like, all right, some Picard.
That's totally what happened last week too.
Oh, it's hilarious. I don't get a chance. My kids get up super early. They're like early risers, so they're up at 6. So.
Yeah, mine's recently started doing that too. I don't know what the story is. I don't know. This is a thing. He set his alarm.
Well, it's also infinite energy.
Yeah, really. We've got to figure out a way to harness that somehow.
So it's like harnessing the power of the sun,
right? Just tie them up to a power plant.
That's child abuse.
Only if you don't use the power, man.
Yeah, that's true. If
you don't plug anything in, then it's child abuse. But if you plug in a TV, you're good.
Well, other than those handy tips if you have children, we are getting into the 7th episode of Star Trek Picard. This is Nepenthe, and it is... I don't know how to really put it, but it has a lot of really great moments to it. It was a real fun episode, and I enjoyed it. I heard somebody made a claim that they didn't feel like the plot was moving along enough. I sort of agree, and sometimes I think some episodes could have been hurried up, but this is an episode I'm glad they didn't hurry up through.
Yeah, me too. So should we warn people that this is probably going to be a spoiler episode? Or are they just used to it by now?
Usually do just a real quick, just thoughts without
non-spoiler. We don't talk about everybody dying in the end.
Yeah, they're all dead.
They're all dead. Everybody died. Picard died at the end of the episode.
That'd be a great ending. real big teaser.
Only would be irritating because it would prove David's theories. Because that's what David theorizes. He's already theorizing that. So,
well, awesome. What did you think about this episode?
So in general, this was a really good episode. This is a great, like a feel good episode, especially if you're a TNG fan, because we go back and touch a lot of touchstone pieces from TNG, and I won't go into any details because we're in the spoilery section.
That's right.
But one of the things that I think is very good about this episode is they're pausing to take care of the characters. So
interesting. Yeah.
When you talk about this episode being a slow episode, it is, but one of the characters needs to be taken care of in this episode. And I feel like that's like, not like shot in the head, but like actually like taking care of the trauma of the character and the what's pathos, working with pathos. So that really turns out well. So it's really cool. I like this episode a whole lot. This was a good one. But being, a fan of nostalgia, this is definitely, right up my alley. What about you? What'd you think?
I enjoyed it. It had a lot of, like you said, the callbacks from the older TNG episodes. It had tie-ins from everything, and it was. There's a few things I wish would have been a little different, but I mean, we'll get into that in spoilers. But I really enjoyed everything here, and I thought there were some really great parts to it. And there's an A and B plot finally for once. We don't normally see that. I guess we do see it. We would see it with the cube and Picard. So they're like before he got to the Borg cube, but now we're past all that. So we're seeing Picard and his crew got separated. So we're seeing a little bit different story. So there's some interesting plot twists and things are changing. So interesting. The word Nepenthe, I guess it's from Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah,
and it's a drug or a drink that it has the power to bring forgetfulness of sorrow and trouble.
Mm-hmm. Which also we'll get into that one.
And isn't that just called alcohol? It doesn't mean you forget it forever. You just forget it for the moment. So, yeah. So let's get into full spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
It's hard not to bring up all the stuff that we really do need to say about this episode because there's a lot of nitty gritty that we really got to talk about and break down. So,
well, real quickly before we go into spoilers, it should also be noted that Nepenthe is also an eatery perched on Big Sur in California. Just saying, it's a great terrace and has breathtaking views. If you're really interested in that,
I didn't know that. Thank you.
So, have you ever seen the movie 2010?
Yeah, the like sequel to 2001, right?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies. There's a scene in there.
It's an interesting movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's when they ignite Jupiter, right, as a sun.
Yeah. Well, that was in the book too, but yeah, which we all know the movies deviate from. Anyway, one of the scenes in there was, I've loved this one all along. Dr. Chandra goes in and types in a new file to start with Sal, because he needs to restart Hal. He needs to figure out how to do it. So he's talking to Sal about it. And he says, Phoenix, he opens a new file called Phoenix. And Sal, he goes, do you know what that means? And Sal goes, the tutor of Achilles. And I was like, ever since then, I've been like, it's just funnier to say, no, you know what Nepenthe means? It means Erie perched on Big Sur. It's like the most, what? Where?
That's funny. It's been a while since I said 2010. I was probably a teenager last time I seen that because it's not regarded as the high mark of that series. I mean, 2001 is the big one. So obviously, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly I like Stanley Kubrick and I love sci-fi, but that is honestly not one of my favorite movies.
That's okay.
I enjoy it for what it is, for the time period, but I'll have to go back and watch 2010. It's been a very long time.
It happens to be one of those ones that I had on DVD, and at some point in time, I ripped all my DVDs so that I could save space.
Oh, right.
And so I still have it like hanging around as a random MP4. And so every so often I'll haul it out and watch it because now it's hard to get that DVD even.
Imagine, yeah.
So that one and like the Final Countdown with Kirk Douglas is another.
God, the Final Countdown. Jeez.
That one's another one that
you're pulling out some
onto my MP4 because I got my MP4 off of my hold on to your hat off of my VHS tape.
Wow, look at you. Look at you.
And because they I think they did release a DVD of it, but it was from some like really obscure DVD manufacturing company, and they ran like, 2,000 copies or something. So now getting a hold of them is really hard. It's like, man,
that's hilarious. There's just some movies that are hard to get. They're much harder to find.
Yeah.
So
here's our first rabbit hole.
There's a big rabbit hole right there. Right. Nepenthe. We are going to break into spoilers here, but just let you know, even though Dave and Holly aren't here, they've sent me some of their thoughts via email, so I'll be reading them.
So the ghost of them will be talking.
Yes. They still haunt us even now. This, like I said, this is season 1 of Star Trek Picard. This is episode 7. This aired March 5th, 2020. And this starts off with the very beginning. We're kind of doing a little look back at when Dr. Girardi is eating her lunch at the Daystrom Institute on Earth when Commodore O comes and visits. So we saw that. I don't know if that was like episode 2 or 3. That was far back.
That was quite a ways ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so we see that conversation now that she's asking her what did her and Picard talk about, and that he's looking for Bruce Maddox, and about the whole idea of what Bruce Maddox or a synthetic life form that he was looking into. And so at this point, Commodore O decides to mind meld with Dr. Girardi, showing her what Earth would be like if synthetic life is to become like a full race of life forms, and it's apocalyptic looking.
Right.
And so she is pretty much freaked out by what she saw. I have questions about this. How could Commodore O know what that looked like?
I am, okay, so are we breaking into discussion about this? Because I would love to discuss.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about this. First of all, I would like to say it's funny. I am on a number of the Star Trek boards out there, which are all, and they all whine about how, a few episodes back, Girardi made this left-hand turn that makes absolutely no sense. And the writers are insane because it makes no sense. And I love how this scene makes it make sense.
Right. Exactly.
It's almost like you've just got to tell everybody, look, guys, just relax, calm down. Mm-hmm. Nothing is being solved right in front of your face. Right. They're letting you walk through this story. So, it's just very funny. The second thing about Commodore O, I am of the opinion here that Commodore O is either convinced that whatever horrible thing is going to happen with the sense is going to happen in some way or another. I mean, so it fits a lot more with like the Enterprise Vulcans to me.
Okay, right.
Enterprise Vulcans were terrified of everything.
They're very shifty and they're always manipulating people. Yeah.
Right. Because they were doing the space is a scary, terrible place and horrible, and we shouldn't be out there, and we're not
filled with disease.
Yeah, exactly. They're being bones filled with disease, got nothing left but my bones. So anyway, I feel like she's harking back to the Enterprise Vulcans, very much that we've got to take action and restrict everybody, otherwise bad things will happen, to protect everyone. So, I mean, maybe she's just a horribly creative Vulcan, and the images she has in her head are extremely sharp. So when she mind melds, all she has to do is just transfer that fear.
Yeah, but
and then
those are pretty vivid feeling or visual images. I mean, we're seeing cities looking like they're under attack or burning, and we see humans being look like kind of torn apart, or I don't know exactly. I didn't freeze frame each one of those scenes, but it was pretty stressful.
Well,
like what's happening.
I think that Picard has been a large analogy of a larger thing.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think one of the things that Picard has been talking about is the way people use fear to control the populace.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, you think about this, just thinking about, let's leave current political things out of this. Let's talk about the Nazis, who generated enough fear in the Germans that normal German people would do unspeakable things.
Sure.
Or even the Japanese. Same thing.
Right.
Normal Japanese people. And I mean, I've been embedded in the Japanese culture for God knows how long. And I know for a fact that there's nothing weird or special or unique about the Japanese. They're just folks. They're just normal folks. You know what I mean? But somehow they managed to do the rape of Manchuria. You know what I mean? As a unit.
Right, right.
Heck, most of Okinawa was ready to just commit mass suicide rather than let the Americans come in.
Right,
they had to actually stop Okinawa from committing mass suicide, like the entire island.
Right.
And it's like, that's an amazing amount of fear. That's and of course, when they had been told that the Americans eat people, that the Americans were monsters, they were superhuman. They had been convinced. All of this stuff sounds ridiculous when you look at it from a 21st century perspective. Yet these perfectly normal people in 1945 were convinced of it.
I'm reminded of the. I'm sure you learned about it in college. Was the Stanford prison experiment where the students, some students were prisoners, some students were guards, and how they let them kind of mock act who they a prison setting, and the guards became super abusive.
Yeah.
And they became authoritative. And it was, so that's, and that was only an experiment. I don't know exactly how long the experiment lasted, but I mean, it was just kind of funny that, that's been touted for years. I mean, that's one of the first things, probably first or second year of college, I learned about the Stanford prison experiment.
Right.
So
I learned that in psychology as well in college. Yeah. And it's fascinating. So I think a lot of this is a deep dive. I think that, first of all, I don't think that Commodore O is Romulan. I think she is most definitely a Vulcan.
Sure. She mind melds, so yeah.
Yeah, she has been definitely convinced by the Zhat Vash that there is because we know we've had connection between the Vulcans and the Romulans since Unification 1 and 2.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, we know that they've got two-way talking going on here.
Right.
And I'm sure that didn't get slower, but rather increased post Hobus, the Hobus event. So,
right.
My thought is that this is a deep dive. We're just deep diving into this fear.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what the Picard series is telling that story. It's talking about, refugees and fear and people not having full status as citizens or
right
or whatever. So I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, but I still wonder how Commodore O came upon those visual imagery. Was it like something, were they artificial, memories given to her? Were they, did she actually see the future somehow? Did she,
well you
there's
and
so
I
much...
both do art, Aaron. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Don't you fully see your scenes? I do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
so if I were to mind meld with you, how would you know I wasn't transferring some aspect of my comic book as opposed to something I saw yesterday? In my head, they both look just as real and rendered.
Sure, true. There's very true. I mean, and I suppose in the future there's even more, fancy ways to depict memories artistically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thought is that it's not like.
So you think this is her fears that are being? I
think she's transmitting fears.
Interesting.
But
especially since she's Vulcan, she's supposed to be purged of emotion. Not that Vulcans are, but they do try to do that. So.
Yeah. So I think that my my memory or my computer is saying something here.
Interesting. Well, so Commodore O scares the shit out of Girardi. That's the long and short of it, and that's basically why we see in the past couple episodes back that she murders Bruce Maddox. So,
right.
That's the reasoning, and she is pretty much wants to get out of there. Oh, and just before they the look back is we see Commodore O give her a tracking pill, which she swallows. So, or chews.
and then throws up.
Yes, exactly.
The first time of many times that.
Yeah, she does a lot.
Poor Girardi has to barf.
She's barfing a lot lately.
There's an awful lot of barfing for her.
Yeah, I know. So then we fast forward 3 weeks later, and we're on the ship of the La Sirena, and we see Rios and Rafi, and they are basically trying to escape from the Borg cube, and they have them in a tractor beam, and we have that going on. I don't know how they can. Their engines could hold up to that. I know they're trying to go to warp and stuff like that, but it just seems like Borg cubes are pretty strong.
Well, but we also can presume that this Borg cube is somewhat dismantled or damaged.
It's possible, yeah. So, and then on Borg cube itself, we have Hugh is being held prisoner by Narek's sister Rizzo, and she is got a bunch of the X-Borgs or XBs, and she is trying to get them to tell basically where Picard and Soji ran off to. So they know that they got them off the Borg cube in last episode, and Rizzo wants to find out. And this is where she just massacres all of the XBs, the X-Borgs, and right in front of Hugh. So, and Hugh is just absolutely, devastated. And she says, "This is all because of what you did." So,
yeah, and it should be noted that we had set this up in last week's episode, where he had said, because there's a key important thing that that Narissa is saying here at this point in time, which is she comments that, or in the previous episode, Hugh had said that the XBs were landless. They didn't have a home world.
Right.
They weren't allowed to repatriate.
Right, exactly.
And so when Narissa holds Hugh at gunpoint, she can't kill Hugh. She says that.
Right.
Because that would cause an incident.
Because he's actually a Federation citizen.
Because he's a Federation citizen. But all the XBs are not. And that's why she starts killing them.
Right, exactly. So that's obviously it's hard to watch too, just because in last episode we saw how proud Hugh was of all the work that he was doing to, take all the devices and off these XBs. So I mean, and trying to bring them back to what they originally were. So that was his work. That's what he was trying to do, and then to see them all be killed like that is, horrific. And so then Rizzo talks to her brother Narek, and he's taking one of a smaller ship out of the cube, and they release the tractor beam from the La Sirena, and they take off, not knowing at this time that Narek is going to be tracking them, basically through Dr. Girardi's tracking device, which they don't know yet. So, or they probably don't know at all. So through this whole episode, so then we get just before they take off, they were say, well, what about Elnor? Elnor's still on the cube, and Elnor basically says that he has to stay, and he's going to work with Hugh, trying to get this get things right there on the Borg cube. That's what he wants to do. So they take off,
right,
without Elnor. So Elnor stays behind
because it's a hopeless cause.
Yeah, of course.
I love the co-op a lot. Those guys are awesome.
Yeah,
they're my favorite people ever.
They're pretty interesting. Yeah, as a change of the Romulan psychology, I suppose, for once.
Mm-hmm. They're not two-dimensional anymore. The Romulans are very deep in this.
Yeah, which is interesting. They're not just just a typical villainous characters. We're seeing different sides of the Romulans, which is interesting. So next scene we have Picard and Soji come their transportation from the Borg cube that we saw in the last episode. They come to Nepenthe, and they are on this idyllic world, nice forest and everything, and beautiful surroundings. And as they're walking, there's a girl who's done up as I was thinking what are the Peter Pan, the Lost Boys.
Yeah, the Lost Boys. Yeah.
But she has a bow and arrow pointing at him, and she, she's not, they're like, okay, hands up, so, and then this is Kestra. Kestra is, we find out later, is Riker and Troy's daughter.
Named after her aunt.
Mm-hmm. And so Kestra takes Soji and Picard to her house, and this is where we get just a great, reunion with Troy and Riker, and it was just great to see them on screen again. I can't stress enough how great it was to watch that reunion happen. They're living a very simplistic life, just on this planet, and I guess the planet has some the soils have some sort of regenerative powers or some sort like that. Riker says this at some point. So
yeah. So it has some kind of, yeah, you're right. There's some kind of, I don't know. I remember. I'm looking it up even as we speak.
Yeah, it was something to that nature. And as they're walking to the house, Kestra is very talkative, and she's very interested. She knows who Picard is because of stories before. She shows Soji that this compass that I guess another Federation officer, Captain Crandall, lives nearby, and apparently even older than Picard, and gave her this broken compass, and so she just
he no longer is in the Federation either. I mean, well, okay, I'm extrapolating only because his ship is called the Inside Strait, and I don't think that's necessarily a Federation starship designation. So I'm guessing.
Yeah, it could just be a ship.
Yeah.
And they say it didn't even run or something like that, but I think that's what they said. I just a little side thing. The one thing that Soji is grappling with at this point is what's real anymore. She's wondering if this is even just a whole, like some kind of farce or something to get her to believe. And this is where Picard mentions that that Soji is Data's daughter, and Kestra's like, "Oh, you're an android," and Soji had not put this together yet, or at least not. She hasn't connected all the dots consciously. Maybe subconsciously she has, but so Picard's like trying to talk her off the ledge, kind of thing. Like just settle down. We got a lot to talk about, and so when they meet up with Troy and Riker, they're trying to give her like a moment she can kind of like you said. Trying to sort things out and get better. So, she's a little beat up from her encounter with Narek in the last episode, but I think she's more psychologically damaged from that. So they're going to have a pizza dinner. We have Riker making pizza in a wood oven and
bunny corn pizza.
Yeah. And they're just, it's great. They're just a lot of back and forth between everybody and everyone just getting kind of like reacquainted with each other. It's interesting seeing them not in a, I guess, of a structured military structured relationship. Now they're just old colleagues together. Yeah. So, but Riker's still a little bit of Riker is friendly as he is when like Picard says we might be in trouble. He's got shields all set up and like a cloaking tracker and stuff like that. So he's got the tech to protect his house and his family. So, which is interesting. So, and as we go forward, Kestra is sort of the bridge to Soji. She is this child that's obviously very unique, and she's very inquisitive, and she finds Soji very interesting. She's an android. She's heard the stories of Picard. She's heard the stories of Data, and everything that happened on the Enterprise. So she's got a lot of questions, and she's it was an interesting choice in a character to kind of like move Soji's character a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought so. And we do find out that Riker and Troy, unfortunately, came along with some grief in their life. They had a son, Thaddeus, who seemed like a really ingenious, really incredible person. Making up his own languages and stories behind everything, his own worlds, and unfortunately, he died at some point from a disease. Trying to see what it
was. A silicon-based disease.
Yeah, I didn't even know that could affect humans, but I guess it
could.
I
mean, it's the future, and all kinds of things happen here.
Space is filled with disease.
This is the second time we've quoted.
No, but I mean,
it's neurosclerosis.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's what it was.
And because the synth life forms were banned after the attack on Mars, there was no more research done on silicon on that type of disease that they could look into a treatment. And unfortunately, he died. So it's very tragic. So
yeah, when he was about 15, is what Michael Chabon says.
Right. Yeah. It's it's sad. It's a sad part of their story, and we can tell that they're obviously like Troy is still dealing with it. We don't see much of Riker, what he's going through, but you got to imagine he's going through the same thing. So it's just a tough episode, to think that these two great characters had such a terrible thing happen to them. So their child killed, or not killed, but taken by disease. So
It's rough. Yeah, it's a rough one.
Yeah, and and Picard's like, I didn't come here to put your family in jeopardy. I don't want to stay here very long. So, so that's that. Then we jump back to Rios and Rafi and Dr. Girardi, and they are being tracked by a Romulan cloaking device, and they're picking up on the signal, but they can't tell exactly where it is and what how it's tracking them. And Rios is trying to do maneuvers to try to get away from it. So, not knowing right now that Girardi is the reason why they're being tracked.
Right.
And also we have Raffi trying to help Dr. Girardi feel better, and gives her cake and stuff like that, and trying to make her feel, I guess, because she says she just wants to go home. She just wants to go back to Earth. So, and she's like, what's changed, And I think she even calls, she says something, calling the synths the fucking synth or something like that, referring to Soji. So Girardi is definitely over her head, and she can't emotionally take what's happening to her right now. So,
well, yeah, I mean, it's Girardi's had a rough time.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's definitely been manipulated for sure.
Yeah, back to what we were talking about before. I feel like poor Girardi, she must be in some way either navigating her way out of what Commodore O has put into her brain, mm-hmm. or something, because she's now suddenly realizing she wiped out Bruce Maddox. She's effectively, causing all of this.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So somewhere I think she starts to break that down,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things that you're like, you feel bad for Girardi, that she's been manipulated, but also you kind of like, where's your backbone in all this? Why are you just because somebody showed you those thoughts or those memories or whatever, does that mean exactly what's going to happen? I mean, it's like it's a weird thing. So,
well, and like we were talking about before, I mean, you kind of want to say, hey, couldn't you tell it was stupid? But then you kind of want to say that to the Germans and the Japanese.
I agree with that part of it. I mean, it's like fear's fear, and there's nothing you can do about it. But there's also a point where you have to say to yourself, like, no matter what, I mean, we're all met with fear at some point. Like, are we going to let that dictate everything about our lives?
Sure.
You could get so paralyzed with fear that you don't even want to walk out the door, kind of thing.
My dad used to say, well, an airplane wheel could fall through your house too,
Yeah, exactly.
To sort of indicate that anything could happen to you.
Anything
could
happen.
Sit there.
Yeah, anything could happen. Absolutely. It's the world is not a certain place, not a for sure place. So so anyways, it's
disease.
Exactly. So that's gonna be like the quote.
That's the quote for tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Bones talking about all the disease out in space. We do some back and forth. I think I fast forward some of the things that happened back on Nepenthe with Soji, and like Troy realizes that Soji's not human or not a life form, because she can't read anything from her telepathically or empathically. So she already knows that something's going on here. And when Picard kind of breaks it down, what's happening with them, and how it's funny because he tells that she's from Data, but Riker breaks down the whole thing of what he thinks everything's going on. So he's like, it's probably the Romulans, it's probably the Tal Shiar. You're on the run, because of her, and so it was interesting how how Riker kind of like deduced everything that was happening with Picard. So, and Picard admitted he doesn't even know what to do now. Like, now that he met up with Soji, now he doesn't know what the next thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide at the dinner table they'll sit there and they'll try to talk about, like, have a what did was it Troy say? It said, like, we'll have a ready room.
Yeah, pretend this is your ready room.
Exactly. And so they'll be talking about things over everything that's happening there. We jump back to the Borg cube, the artifact, and Hugh and Elnor are going to the Queen's room where they have that portal, and Hugh's going to try to basically take control of the cube from the Queen's chamber room, or whatever you want to call that. And this is where they get cornered by Rizzo, and she's got some guards with her, and Elnor starts fighting with Rizzo and trying to protect Hugh, but unfortunately during the fight, Hugh is stabbed in the neck. And
although we did get finally to hear Hugh or Elnor's famous "Please, my friend, choose to live" in Romulan, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, I wonder if they're working out a language for Romulans, because
they have to be. There's no way that they'd be sloppy after Klingon.
Yeah, you don't know, but I mean, it would be cool if they actually had some linguists work on that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I'm assuming there's a linguist. It seems weird to have had them. That seems like an epic oversight, because they knew that we would. I want to learn Romulan.
There you go. Yeah, I know, right? So after this, the fight with Narissa Rizzo, Narek's sister, she takes off. Elnor is cradling Hugh, and Hugh says that you need to have basically an ex-Borg to activate the Queen's chamber room, and just before he dies, he thanks him for letting him be a hopeful fool. So, and then he passes. So, I really hated seeing Hugh die. I want to see Hugh continue to live. I felt, I mean, I understand it's story and it's like drama and stuff like that, but I just didn't want to see Hugh die. He had such a great story arc, and to see him die in that way, it was really sucks.
I saw a video posted by StarTrek.com of Del Arco, and he's on the cruise right now, and they talked about a little bit of this, and he was saying, it really sucked to die, but he'd never died on screen before, and that was kind of cool,
right?
It's kind of but he was talking about, what was he talking about that was so interesting? He was talking about how the big thing that somebody had to lay their life down for this.
Sure.
To up the ante on this. And so it was good. I'm glad in a way, because Hugh was noble and honorable and decent all the way to the bitter end. And I was kind of worried that in the next 2 or 3 episodes, we'd find out that he was secretly working for the Zavash,
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, because that would be, it sucks to see Hugh go away. I loved Hugh. But on the flip side, I'm really glad he went out well.
Right. Well, I just, it's hard because, it's almost like, honestly, it's like, Hugh, we see Hugh is so young, and when he's still a Borg and he's learning, he's separated from the Borg, and he gets his name from Geordi and all this stuff, interactions with the Enterprise. It's like having that newborn and seeing that newborn grow up, and then, they don't make it, to full adulthood or something like that. It's like that's where I'm like, oh, he had such potential. He was such a cool character, and there's so much there. There's like he, like you said, and he was noble, and he was trying to do what was right all the time. So I don't know. So it hurt a little bit to see Hugh die. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah,
it did.
So Elnor is on the run, and after Hugh's death, so we jump back to the La Hacienda, and
the mermaid.
And this is where we have the Girardi is puking because
again, is that blood? No, what was it?
Red velvet cake. Yeah, because Rafi mentioned something like because Girardi says that Rafi's a good person, and she says I'm more like a wreckage of a good person, a temporary good person in emergency cases or something like that. And this is where she starts crying, and Rafi thinks it's all about what happened with Maddox, but obviously there's more at play there. And this is when Rio says that the Romulan cloaked ship is still there, and it's this, and Girardi throws up, and so like she said, it's velvet cake. So Girardi's not doing well. Back with Picard, Riker, and Troy, they're having their dinner, and this is where they start talking about trying to get Soji to trust Picard, and Picard's like says, look at my heart rate, listen to my breathing, my pupils, look at all these things. What does that tell you? And she says that you seem honest, but it doesn't mean that you are honest. So
right.
And they start going into what happened with her on the Borg cube when Narek got Soji to go through this Romulan psychological thing where they tried to reveal what was in her dream that she kept on her dream that she kept having. And this is where she says, I saw a planet that had 2 red moons and lots of lightning, like a big lightning storm. So she thinks that might be her home planet. So, and also they get into Data, who Data was, and trying to tell her why Data was important and why it means something to Picard. So, and this is where when they're talking about this, trying to figure out where the planet is, Kestra starts looking up, and she says it's the Gulion system.
Yeah.
So, and the planet doesn't have a name; it's only a number or something like that. So, at least they know kind of where they're going to go. So that's kind of cool. So they know what's going on there. So back with Rios and Girardi, she's got him in the sick bay, and she keeps on. She's trying to act like everything's fine, but obviously something's not. And this is where Rios confides in Girardi, saying that I think something's up with Rafi. I think they're tracking Rafi, because when we were on Free Cloud, she went away for a little bit, and then she came back and she was all upset. And Girardi tries to say, no, it's not her, it's me. But I don't think Rios is picking up what she's saying.
No, and actually, I got to give props. As someone who writes,
mm-hmm.
It's hard to write a character who is ignorant.
Yeah.
Because you're aware of the whole story. You know everything. It's all in your head. You know who the good guys are. You know who the bad guys are.
Right.
And, as writers, we've gotten good at seeing television where, Aaron's character clearly does not know that the guy's character is the bad guy.
Sure.
We're used to that. What's hard is thinking about the scenes in a visual pattern where, that Rafi came back from Free Cloud and talked to no one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No one knows what she did on Free Cloud. We do.
Right.
But no one else knows.
Right.
And so that means that Rios had no clue. Didn't talk to Raffi at all. All he did was just put a blanket over her and take her whiskey away. And that's about all he managed to get from her. But if you look at the narrative, we all know what all happened there. And so props to the writers for that, because that's, making sure that Rios's character stayed blind to a little detail like that is really clever and nice. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do as a writer. It's easy to make them ignore the Klingons and whatever, not know that the Klingons had an evil plan, or the Romulans had this evil plan, or
right.
But it's really hard to go, oh, that's right. Rios didn't see, or Raffi didn't talk to Rios, so Rios has no idea. It's one of the flub ups you often see on TV. Is Aaron walks in and goes, well, naturally, a guy was beaming down to planet 1234 where he saw his long-lost daughter and now he's very upset.
Yeah,
and go back and look, they never talked.
Right, yeah, you can't, it's making those connections or conjecture that there's no way they could have figured that stuff out, yeah. And which is fine. The only issue I had with any of this was that the EMH thing that keeps on showing up constantly never warns Rios at any point that, it looked like she was killing him, killing Maddox. I don't
know why that EMH is not talking about it.
Yeah, it seems like an odd thing, unless she went back and they'll see that she hacked it or something and took that part of the records out, which, she's smart enough to do that, I suppose. But anyways, so Rios is there, and he's got to when he confides in her, he's got to run back up to the bridge, and because the Romulan ship is there tracking again, and this is where Girardi decides that she's going to give her a dose of some kind of neurotoxin effect, and she takes a hypospray and she shoots herself in the neck, and she falls to the ground, starts foaming. And,
again, another of her throwing up scenes.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe this isn't really throwing up.
Yeah, but sort of throwing up.
Sort of. Throwing.
She threw up all the cake already, so all there was is just milk.
I just feel bad for Alison Pill, because here's this poor actress, and guess what you get to do today?
Throw up.
And she's like, didn't I already throw up? Well, yeah, but you get to do it again. Yeah. What? But God damn it! Do I get to throw up again? Oh.
Again,
you have to give her. I mean, you gotta give Alison props. She did a good job of throwing up all those.
Yeah, exactly. So this is when the EMH doctor shows up, and I guess tries to revive her. So we know that Girardi is now in a coma after that. So what she did to herself. I don't know if the spray that she gave her was supposed to destroy the. I guess it was supposed to destroy the tracking device, because knew it was tracking. That they knew that Rios knew somehow they're tracking the ship, and so she must have realized she's got to get rid of this tracking device inside of her. So,
which maybe why she put herself in a coma.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that makes some sense that either the tracking device tracks as long as she's thinking.
Right. Yeah, but so. There'll be more. Now they can't question her about everything that happened, so I guess we'll just have to wait.
There's that.
Back on the Borg Cube artifact, Elnor is in the Borg Queen's chamber, and this is where they see the Ranger, whatever call chip that 7 of 9 gave Picard. And it's on the console for some reason, and this is where he realizes, I could use her to activate the command's controls at the Borg in the Queen's chamber. So he hits that the signal for the to bring the Rangers in 7 of 9 to the Borg cube. So we know we'll get 7 of 9 next episode.
Yeah.
Right, and then we jump back to Picard and Riker. And apparently now they are in range. They can talk to Rios and the crew, and they are they're still going through their problems, but Picard's like, everyone's the crew's a mess. He's basically saying everyone's got baggage and stuff like that. So it's interesting, and they have a great moment where they're sitting out on the dock and they're having coffee or tea or whatever they're drinking, and they're just talking about, Picard thanks Riker for everything that he's done for him, and I think it's mostly not just right now, but even in the past. So
yeah,
and Riker, Picard says, "I'm surprised you hadn't talked me out of it." And Riker says, "That's it'd be a losing proposition. No, I couldn't talk you out of it." So, they
He's
finally, yeah, it's a great scene between them. And then the Rios and Krug shows up, and they're going to bring Picard and Soji aboard. And so Picard says goodbye to Troy and Riker, and Kestra runs out and gives Soji that compass, the broken compass. And,
which she got from Crandall, so...
Right, and she says she was only pretending it worked, so I can't... it seems strange, but it seems like some sort of a maybe metaphor of some kind, I'm not quite sure, but just an illusion of things at work, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so Picard beams up, and that's where the show ends.
So I'm noticing a number. I mean, first of all, this thing was riddled with callbacks to everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, this is the first time that... Oh, wait, go ahead and finish what you were saying, because you were going to say something.
No. I would just. I want you to go into it, because we're going to go into our thoughts, and I'll read what Dave has to say, and we'll talk about what Holly has to say as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, okay. So this is the first mention of the Zinti in real live action Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Zinti are a Larry Niven creation. And there is an alternate universe version of them, because at one point in time during the animated series, they were going to try to merge the two worlds. Mm-hmm. That never went through, and it was one of the commonly called reasons why the animated series was decanonized, so to speak. So the fact that the Zinti are being brought back here is yet again reaffirming the actual animated series back in the canon.
It's funny you say that, because I've had discussions with other Trek fans, and some from more popular podcasts, Star Trek podcasts than ours, and a lot of them would poo-poo, especially before Discovery came out. They poo-pooed the animated series,
right,
and say that's not canon. Honestly, they have mined the shit out of the animated series now.
They really have.
And they're going back to it as a well constantly,
and things like even Enterprise did.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Enterprise got Shakar locked in and the Vulcan Forge locked in. I mean, there was some great stuff.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, me and Dave have done animated series, reviews before. Me and you did one. I forgot which one we did with the cat creatures. I can't remember which one that was, but it was Zinti. Right. Yeah.
Slaver Weapon.
Yeah, Slaver Weapon. Thank you.
Which is in fact the episode we're talking about here, because the Zinti are in the episode The Slaver Weapon.
I forgot their names at the moment, but it's funny to me is that I sincerely believe the animated series, even though it's terrible animation, and the stories are a little bit...
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a cough there.
And the stories are a little, just a little silly, but also they kind of move at a weird pacing.
I think that's their 30-minute time run.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's a weird pacing for these cartoons, but when you watch them, but the stories are very good and the ideas are excellent. So,
oh yeah, well, it's written by the same people. That's one of the reasons that's one of the big reasons why I think they should be canonized, is because DC Fontana was on it. You had a ton of people from, if nothing else, just having Dorothy Fontana writing to it
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about Dorothy Fontana and my absolute worship of her writing.
Sure, yeah.
And it makes, so for me, of course, I'm like, well, I mean, why belittle what she's done? So I mean but you're right. I mean, it's like a lot of people still play the game of not canonizing it, but to me, the big reason that it's not canon was because of the slaver weapon.
Really?
Because that was a copyrighted material, copyrighted by Larry Niven's stuff, and because of that, I mean, it feels like, well, it doesn't feel like. There are a lot of people who theorize this. The only way you'll ever be able to get the truth out of it is to resurrect Gene Roddenberry and ask him, which, of course, that's not going to happen. But
interesting.
But the truth is that, like, many of us theorize, especially as old guys who've been around for 100 zillion years and doing all this stuff. We theorize that the animated series was decanonized because of the slaver weapon. So the fact that Picard calls specifically that episode, to me, obliterates that last block.
I love that. I haven't watched the slaver weapon since you and I talked about it. I don't even remember what episode that was. That's going back, I think, 2 years ago.
Yeah. It was
it was an episode like this. It was just you and I, and we went on quite a long discussion, and I think we had a long discussion about comics in the end too. So look that one up if you like.
It's a great episode.
It was a great discussion, and I love the slaver weapon. That was a great episode, and I think that I really do think the anime series at this point is actual canon. I know there's a lot of things that seem silly.
They pulled from it for Discovery. They pulled from it for Enterprise, and now they're clearly pulling from it in Picard.
And the JJ reboots yesteryear it was yesteryear, wasn't it? The one where when Spock was young,
right? So that's where Enterprise kept going back to that well.
Yeah, exactly.
Enterprise went back to that well a lot.
What else about this episode did you want to bring up?
Okay, so one of the other things that we start seeing is that we actually let's see here. Girardi mentions a Gormagander, which is from Discovery. That's the space whale,
right?
And that's an interesting one. We also, Soji and Kestra are talking a lot about all of the stuff from Next Gen. These are all eggs. Data dreaming, Data's desire to understand and master the art of comedy, Data learning how to dance, and Data's love of Sherlock Holmes. So those are calls to Birthright, Phantasms, Outrageous Okana, Data's Day, Lonely Among Us, Elementary Dear Data, A Ship in a Bottle. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's like a ton of calls right there.
Right.
So that's a, wow, pretty amazing set of stuff in just one sentence from the girl.
Yeah.
Picard mentions that his heart is solid duratanium.
Yep. Yeah. Tapestry,
which is
right?
From Samaritan Snare and Tapestry.
Right.
And Kestra mentions that Captain Crandall has allegedly been to Tychon's Rift, which is Night Terrors. So, I mean, there's a lot of cross-talking going on right here in this episode.
Right.
So once again, there's something that I really love about Picard that I keep wanting to bring up and I keep forgetting. Has anybody else noticed that the Romulan music, when they're doing the Romulan stuff between Narek and Nerissa, or the two of them, the brother and the sister, a lot of that is literally a reorchestration of the Balance of Terror music?
I haven't picked that up.
Listen to it; it totally is.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'd have to listen to watch Balance of Terror again. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's one of my favorite original series episodes. But yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's really, really, really cool about that. Now we get back to Kestra and Thaddeus. So Thaddeus is named after Riker's great grandfather or whatever. So how do we know that one? That's actually a Voyager episode. For those of you guys who are looking this up, that's Death Wish.
Surprised you didn't go call him Tom.
Right? Well, that would have been I think that's what I like about the writers. That's the easy mark.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I'm glad they didn't name him Tom. That would be just
they're referring to Death Wish. That's the one where the Q shows up on Voyager that's been locked in an asteroid forever and ever and ever, and he wants to just die.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually love that episode. It's got some phenomenally pointed statements that it makes about society and things like that. So, it's a very good episode. I really like Death Wish. I recommend everybody watch that one. I think that's I want to say second season. Yeah, second season, somewhere in the middle, like 15, 16, 17, something.
I remember it. Yeah.
So anyway, one of the things that Q does is bring examples of the other Q's, mistakes, mishaps, or whatever. Right. And one of them is Riker, which didn't have an interaction with this Q, but had an interaction with Riker's great-great-grandfather in the Civil War. So, anyway, that's where that one is referenced to. Kestra, of course, is named after Troy's older sister, who was brought up in the Next Generation episode, a Dark Page, right? Dark Page.
Jeez, I don't even remember that.
Oh, man, that's a brutal one. It was a good tour de force for Majel Barrett Roddenberry because she had to go through the death of a child, which is pretty brutal.
Right.
So that one's kind of cool. There's all kinds of interesting little things like that through the entire episode. Those are just the Easter eggs that I picked up from this episode and wrote them down. So kind of fascinated by all of that.
Okay. There's definitely a lot going on here. So I mean, they're having fun with it. That's for sure. They're going back on all the little spots to hit, even the emotional beats too, that are interesting.
Yeah.
Let me read Dave Duncan's email here that he sent me. So this is where you're going to get some things he liked and some things he didn't like about this episode in classic Dave Duncan style. So this is what he says. This is easily the best episode of the series so far. Things I loved. The venomous Jacoblo they eat on the pizza, the rabbit thing.
Yeah, the bunny corn.
Yeah. Riker making pizza. Riker and Troy's daughter being an analog of the audience taking about all the awesomeness that happened in the Next Generation, which is true. So she's kind of like relating how great the Next Generation was.
Right.
The episode finally felt like Star Trek for the first time in the season. It's debatable. This is definitely a departure from TNG for sure. This series. The episode wasn't boring. Dr. Girardi committing suicide, or at least attempting it, even though it was just to disable the tracker. And then he wrote, "I hate her so much." So
you see, Dr. Girardi is his Narek for you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know he doesn't like Narek too much either. I don't like Narek because it's so telegraphed that he's the bad guy, the mustache twirling bad guy. I'm like,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm just noticing that every opportunity you've got, you've been taking pot shots at Narek. So
I did, and I'll do the same with Ash. I'll do the same with Ash Tyler too, as well from Discovery. So, then he wrote things he liked. He liked the cake. And it says, "Is Raffi putting a ton of drugs in the cake and the chocolate milk?" And then he wrote roofies, maybe.
Raffi's roofies.
Raffi's roofies. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh, so weird. Then he put also things he likes: Soji in the shower. This is Dave, of course. Soji doing the Data head tilt. So,
yeah, that was clever.
Yeah,
and clever. Very subtle. Nicely done.
Yeah. Things he didn't like. Why didn't Soji or Daj ever do the head tilt before? I don't know.
Yeah, that is a true thing. Why is it neither one of them head tilted before? Probably because they didn't want to give the
thing. And you knew she was. I mean, you basically knew from the beginning. Yeah. Let's see. Not seeing more of Soji in the shower. He didn't like that.
Well, okay. So I want to take a digression here. This is because okay, we all know my stance on this whole thing about but I've got to admit, we have now pulled out eyeballs, we have dissected people, we have squishy noised all over the place with everything. And we have said the F word a zillion times, and we have said the S word a zillion times, and yet we still can't see Soji naked in the shower.
Or
because,
in bed.
Oh my God, the nipples would probably ruin everybody.
I think it's more of an actress thing. I'm sure she has a
clause or a right.
That I'm not going to be naked. Yeah.
Even then, I mean, even at that point, Narek in the shower, anybody in the shower. I mean, it's not like I necessarily want to see naked people, but it's back to the whole statement of we certainly can explode people, but if we show them, if we show them naked, oh my God, that's the end of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's an American thing for sure, for the most part. I mean, we are so easy about violence. We can show eyeballs being ripped out and people being disemboweled, but show bare breast. It's like, oh my God, how
or
dare
even worse, a penis. If you show a penis, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's X-rated at that point in time. You might as well give up.
Well, I mean, Watchmen had a blue wang,
the blue sausage, the blue Smurf.
Yeah, coming out.
And again, that's every time people talk about this, that's what I bring up as a counterexample. I bring up Doc Manhattan. I bring up what's her name? Come on, from Mars. Deja Thoris.
From Mars.
Right? These are characters who were in a culture or have a reason that they just don't care about clothes. It's not there for titillation. It's not there to make you excited and interested. It's there because Doc Manhattan can wipe out the world. So he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care about clothes. Yeah.
Right? Deja Thoris, that's just what the Martians did. It just didn't wear clothes on Mars,
Yeah.
So,
I don't need to see Soji naked. But I do see your point on the whole thing.
Yeah,
so.
I don't need to see Soji naked either. However, I am once again struck by the fact that they were conveniently very prudish about her, where they weren't with Icheb earlier.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're willing to throw Icheb under the bus, but not Soji.
Right.
It's like, now come on.
Yeah, exactly.
One, do the other.
Yeah.
You might as well.
If you're going to show eyeballs ripped out, let's see at least a naked shot once in a while. Also, Dave said he didn't like, why did they kill Hugh? Why bring him back just to immediately kill him? His role in the show could have been anybody. Whoever the Borg Cube ambassador would have still need to show Picard around as a diplomatic access needed. So obviously he was crying out in the wilderness like I did after Hugh was killed. So
yeah,
that's understandable.
He's not the only one. A couple of my buddies are remarkably upset about it.
Yeah, no, that was a hard one to swallow.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. Next was, why was Riker's daughter so quick to talk up Picard and how awesome he was, but then acted like she didn't like him when she was around him? I don't know if she felt that way.
That's a teenager, man.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm too cool for school. Yeah.
I found Kestra to be remarkably real.
Yeah, no, she
was a mess. She was a disaster area, like all teenager girls.
I agree. Kestra was very much very teenagerish, and I I have almost a teenager now, and I can tell you for a fact that they are hot and cold and everything in between. So, did Commodore O just show Girardi the plot of Battlestar Galactica? How is she showing Girardi something that hasn't happened yet or something that hasn't experienced? Well, we went into that. That's still yet to be revealed if that's just Commodore O's fears or if she somehow went into the future or was given vision of the future. So we just don't know. And then he wrote, "Our mind melds lies now." I guess, but it's as Obi-Wan Kenobi says, just certain point of view.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I mean, mind melds are me giving you data and information
from your mind.
Why can't I manufacture data and information? Why does it have to be the absolute truth?
And not only that, as we know too, sometimes eyewitness accounts of crimes are sometimes not accurate because their brains
play tricks on them.
They think they see, a certain type of car or a certain type of, clothing item or something like that in a crime when it wasn't there at all or something, and somebody else could come back like, no, it wasn't that, it was that. So there's always conflicting things because our brains will definitely change things.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is like I firmly believe that O believes this. Yeah. So she's not telling lies.
Right.
She's not telling falsehoods. There's no lie here. She is absolutely telling the truth from her point of view, which is something I have always thought about with Vulcans. Vulcans tell you the absolute truth.
Their truth.
Their truth. So, when you talk about like the absolute truth of what? Does Kirk break the Prime Directive? Well, the absolute truth is yes. No, he didn't here. That was subjective.
Yeah. Well, and it's an absolute truth. You talk to somebody of a strong religious faith, to them, their belief system is absolute truth. To somebody who subscribes to another belief system or not at all, that's not truth at all. So, I mean, we all have our own personal truths. And
that's true too. I mean, that's a great example. If you have a Vulcan who's, let's just pull a random thing out. Let's say you have a Buddhist Vulcan. Then what is the absolute truth there? Is there a God? Is there not a God?
There's the 7 principles or 7 noble truths.
Right. Exactly. It's like you have
all life is suffering.
Figure that out.
Right.
You're absolutely right. And so what you'd end up with subjective truth.
Yeah. So that's what it comes down to. I mean, there are, I guess, definable truths, and then there's subjective or personal truths. So so there's some difference there. Then he goes on to random musings. Is Commodore O from the future? Maybe, or maybe she visited the future. So that's a possibility. Did the Romulans also get the sphere data from Discovery? That's an interesting thought. I don't know either way if that's good or bad or how that would even play into it. And then he says, do the Romulans just hate androids and all AI? So, well, that's already been sort of established. The Zadvash do, no matter what. So,
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, like we had said, and I don't know if it was you and I that were talking about this before when we talk about Admiral Jarrok looking at, way back in the Defector in TNG.
Okay.
And Admiral Jarrok looks at Data and says, I know a number of scientists who would love to get their hands on you.
Right.
It adds a certain depth to that one line.
Yeah.
Which, that's one of the reasons why I liked Leith in Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because it added so much depth to Journey to Babel.
Interesting.
Connecting those 2 episodes together and tying them up real nice. But also changing how Spock and Sarek were operating. Mm-hmm. And we get the same thing here. because Zhat Vash have been saying that androids suck and they'll just set fire to the universe if we ever have androids around, then you also have this sort of convolution sort of thing going on here where it changes the way that the Romulans have been working before. We've never seen Romulans with an android. So
no,
the only time we ever see Romulans talk about an android is when Admiral Jarok talks to Data.
Yeah, Data, right. Yeah, right, in the Defector. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things, and hopefully there'll be some of that will be revealed as the series progresses. Also, he writes, since AI is the threat in Discovery, does Data have some control in his code? And let me reread this. Since AI is the threat in Discovery, does Data have some control in his code? Is that why the Romulans fear androids? Oh, does Data have the control in his? I don't think so. I don't think Data has any controls, information or code in his positronic brain. So I wouldn't see a connection. I wouldn't see a connection between that at all.
Yeah, I don't think I'd see that either.
Why make the distinction of just androids now when before it was AI that was the threat? Aren't holograms AI? I guess there's degrees of AI. You know, there's more simplistic AIs, and then there's obviously like super advanced AIs. You know, so there's AIs that, you know, can park a car, but then there's AIs that can, you know, interact with people. So,
well, we've been asking that question for a while here,
right?
And I think part of the distinction probably lies in, and I don't know. I mean, it's entirely. I'm looking back in my memory through all of the episodes where we've had interaction with Romulans, and I don't remember the Romulans ever doing the, you know, computer turn on the lights, blah blah blah, or anything like that.
I didn't find a device.
There goes my Alexa being set off.
Yeah, every time you bring up that computer thing.
Yeah, but I don't remember any. I don't remember any episode issue thing where we saw the Romulans ordering computers to do anything. It may be that they literally do have zero AIs. They might be the Admiral Adama of the entire thing, where nothing is connected, nothing talks to each other. Mm-hmm. No computers are wiser than, you know, our phone.
Right.
And they're not talking to, you know, and so it may be. I mean, they may have a paranoia to the level that even AIs aren't allowed. And they just tolerate the Federation doing that. But then they don't find AIs a threat until they start walking around freely.
Right.
And that wasn't much of a threat until they started looking like just anybody on the street.
It's a good point. You know, Data, you could basically see that Data stood out, but, you know, with Dodge and Soji, obviously they could be anybody. So
right. Well, and they were anybody.
Right.
Up until they figured out that they weren't anybody. So, I mean, I can see those being a threat. You could see Data, right? I mean, his skin is goldish white. His eyes are yellow.
Right.
You know, he acts like a robot. He moves like a robot.
Sure.
You know, okay, I could pick him out of a crowd easily. He doesn't look like everything else. But, I mean, here again, you ask all of these questions about this, but we go back to what are little girls made of, right? I mean, in the original series, we already had androids that looked human.
Right. But they looked human.
But, or, iMud. Even iMud, right?
But again, those two things, was it Dr. Corby was discovered the android machine on this planet. he might have been a roboticist and working with androids, but he discovered, whatever Lurch's character was in that.
Lurch's character.
He was from the old ones, remember?
Yes.
And but he could Brock, yeah, but he couldn't. Corby couldn't do what they did with the old ones, so they were kind of limited. And then even Mudd's women, that was Mudd
as well.
It was from another galaxy or something that he discovered this machine that could do all these build these androids. So it's
but Rock, maybe Rock, but then you had Andrea, right?
Yeah,
and then we get a couple of things. Like, what about Requiem for Methuselah? I mean, this was a common thread.
Was Requiem for Methuselah? That was with the creature that they couldn't look at, right?
No, that's the Medusan.
Oh, Medusa. Okay.
No, this is the one where we ran into.
Oh, the creator that was like.
That was infinitely old.
Yeah, he was every great
Michelangelo.
Yeah, every great person.
And so, like, you could say, sure, but he was an alien, except that he was embedded in society,
right?
Our society for literally thousands of years,
right?
And he created an android, and there were a couple of novels that I seem to remember. There was like a Data thread novel. That were a set of novels that ran through like a subplot of Data that brought back Maddox and brought back the character from Requiem for Methuselah, and had them working together to upgrade, all that kind of stuff. It was, but my whole point is that we have already canonically gone back and forth over how robots are.
Sure, and up until this series, androids were very rare. Like there could have been androids, but they were very limited. Yeah. But it seemed like when Data came on the scene, that was like, this is the first really high functioning android. So going back to what Dave was saying, I think there's different levels of AI in androids. So I think there's like super intelligent androids like Data, and then there's this some of the lower androids that we saw in iMud, that didn't have much of anything other than looking real and walking real and talking real.
Right. So, they weren't thinking machines. And I think that was one of the TOS conceits that we had made was, well, yes, but androids, they sit over there and tick.
Right. Yeah, they do weird stuff. Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or so Kirk could talk them into self-destructing. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of one of those. I can see kind of what we're talking about here makes some sense. But either way, obviously there was no reason at all for Noonien Soong to make Data gold unless he had a reason.
Yeah, I don't really know what that was. I don't think they ever went into the reason why he looked.
But wouldn't it be interesting if that was the twist? Because that would be the twist I would go for.
Right.
Is that Soong knew that he would be discriminated against and made him distinct enough that people weren't as afraid.
It's an interesting thing that they could pick him out, right?
Exactly. Because now, as in like they anticipated where Daj and Soji would be in the now they're being hunted down, they're being chased, they're being murdered. And so his intention was, if I make this creature look like a human, act like a human, then you'd be able to find him, or you'd want to discriminate against him, you'd want to kill them. But if I make him look different enough that he's always alien, then
it's definitely a possibility. It's definitely a possibility.
If I was reading, that'd be what happened. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a good thought for sure. Also, Dave says he hopes that Arnold Schwarzenegger comes and help usher in the robot revolt. So
I, for one, am look forward to worshiping our new robotic masters.
Yes, exactly. And then he goes on, please, oh God, don't let them kill 7 and 9 at next episodes. Don't make her disposable like Hugh. I don't think they'll do that with 7 and 9. She's way too popular. I seriously doubt they'll kill her.
So the problem that I've got is, and this is a lot of stuff that worries me. All of Picard's in the can.
Yeah.
And it was in the can before episode 1 rolled.
Mm-hmm.
So if they've killed her, they've killed her. It's done.
Oh, yeah.
And it was done before the reveal that said that she was there, and the fans went nutsoid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was a done deal before that happened. So if they've disposed of her, it is a done deal.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's nothing we can do about it now.
Nope.
He also writes, where the hell is the USS Relativity, the time ship from the 29th century? Why is it absent here and in Discovery? There seems to be time things that should be need corrected. Maybe this is how it's supposed to go. I don't know.
Well, and so here's the thing about the time ship. As much fun as that was for that one episode, it's a Superman.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, we had to back off Superman somewhere along the line because he was effectively perfect.
Yeah, it's too good, yeah.
Right. Well, one can argue, where is the relativity for all of this stuff? Every time a bad person dies, every time a good person dies, why doesn't the relativity show up and save them? Every time that anything happens. So the only thing you can lock down is the temporal prime directive. So I don't see stuff happening here that violates the temporal prime directive. Well, I do in Discovery.
Discovery,
I don't
for
see
sure.
it necessarily here in Picard.
Right. No, but I don't know of anything that's happening in Picard that, I mean, there's really nothing to do with time per se. I mean, and maybe that's just how things are supposed to go.
Right. I mean, that's sort
unless Commodore O is traveling through time, we don't even know that yet. So we don't know what we're seeing from O. If those are real memories that she experienced something from the future, or if she, it's just, these are, like I said, these are just fabrications in her mind of fear, or if these are planted information, we just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you just listening to our politics today, the left is absolutely sure that the leaders of the right are evil, and the right is absolutely sure that the leaders on the left are legitimately evil.
Right.
And if you were to just be able to mind meld with somebody, the average Joe on the street, ask them what their political alignment is, and have them visualize the leader of the other side, I am sure that you would have visions of them eating kittens for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we are really, we're right now soaking in it. I mean,
we're very good. We're very good at demonizing things and turning people into boogeymen or whatever.
Right. So I don't find Commodore O's situation to be unbelievable at all. She is terrified in whatever way a Vulcan can be terrified. However you terrify a Vulcan. But she's completely convinced that there is a legit threat. And in her mind's eye, it's a legit threat to the Federation.
Yeah. Last point that Dave brings out, he says, I was honestly scared that this episode might be the worst of the season since Frank said Jonathan Frank said in an interview that he wasn't in the original first season draft. He wasn't even in it when he was directing his episodes. So the fact that this was written in seemingly last minute made me very worried. But wow, I really enjoyed this one. And I'm sorry I missed being on the show this week. So we miss you too, Dave.
We miss you too, man.
Sorry that you couldn't be on this, but Dave's got family obligations for this week. So so does Holly. So that's the reason why they can't be here.
Which is totally fair.
Wheels are moving, and people have important things to do, people.
People are peopling.
Yes, people are doing people things. I'm going to get into Holly's.
Okay, so this is very weird. Bear with me. It's not going to be chronological. Because usually, when we're all together and we bring up one thing, it's easy to just kind of jump in and say, this is what I thought about that. And I can't do that. But I have realized rereading through all these that I kind of answered a few of my own questions, so I don't have as many questions as I thought I had. Let's start with Captain Rios' ship, El Serena, I think is what it's called. I did appreciate that in this episode we do see where Agnes switches allegiances, and that's when she was approached by Commodore O. I can understand why she switched so quickly. I mean, her work producing synthetic life, whatever part she played in it, that's really going to sit on her conscience that she had a hand in this terrible future that she was just shown by O, which leads me to one of my questions. Why? I don't think O can see the future. Is that a thing? I don't know if that's a thing. Please tell me if that's a thing, because to me, it seems like that's more subjective to her imagination, especially if she's able to implant, if she's able to push her thoughts onto you. There's no reason why she couldn't push a false image in her head. I don't know. It's just weird to me. But Dr. Agnes, she really kind of shows her hand a little bit in the ship when they're trying to get away from the Borg cube, from the artifact, in that she's a little heartless about how she just wants to get out of there and they can have the synth and destroy her. And she's just like, I don't know. It just seemed really weird. And Rios and Rafi both kind of looked at her like, that was weird. Rafi, so there was something on Rafi's screen and it looked like scribbles on paper that were all over a wall. And I have questions about that. I'm wondering, were those Sojis? Where did those come from? And what do they mean going forward? They do finally escape, but they're let go. And I'm just thinking, oh God, please don't be stupid enough to go straight to Nepenthe. Please don't be that dumb. And they both say, well, maybe it's a trap. But then they go for it anyway. And obviously we know that Agnes has a tracker in her system. So yeah, I was just like, please don't be dumb enough. And it kind of heats up here with Agnes. She kind of loses her temper and she switches her stance. She claims that she wants the synth dead, essentially. And she says, why do I have to be the one to do it? And, Rafi and Rios look at each other and Rafi says some things, but she also then takes her away and she's like, I can't remember. She's like, Auntie Rafi's got you or whatever. And comedic line here for the episode was, is it cake? Which I did find really funny. I did laugh out loud. But it was an interesting scene just because I really thought that at this point, Rafi and Rios seemed to be on the same page. And then later on in the episode, it kind of feels different. So she takes her away and gets her cake and milk, and she ends up getting sick. And so Rios, does he care for her, or is this his time to try and get the truth out of her? Because it seemed like, good cop, bad cop kind of dynamic in the beginning, but then he sits her down and she's like, oh no, I'm fine. I just ate too much cake. And he confides in her and he's like, I think maybe somebody tracked Rafi. And it's like, okay, do you really though? He's known Rafi for a long time. And yeah, she's a junkie, so it's possible somebody could have put a tracker in her without her knowledge. But at this moment, I think Agnes really tries to tell him, no, I'm the one with the tracker in me. But he's called back to the helm, and so he has to go, and it's just like, oh my God. So she decides to, I don't know, whatever that thing was. But my question here is, Was she trying to disable the tracker and willing to risk death? Or was she trying to commit suicide so that she didn't have to admit to what she had done? And, she also has already expressed that she has to atone for some things. So she's definitely willing to die. So I don't know. And that's pretty much it for the ship. The EMH comes back. And, what is going on with the EMH? I don't understand. Why is he only showing up now? And they made a point to bring that up earlier because when she threw up the cake, Rafi expected him to show up and clean it up, essentially, and he didn't. So why, finally now, is he reappearing? But that's pretty much all I have to say for that little plot line. The smaller one is going to be what's happening on the artifact itself. Elnor and Hugh are there. Hugh's XBs are executed, and Elnor tells the Serena to go on without him. He's got to protect these people. And then there's this fight scene between Elnor and the Jadvash. And he's just like, I love the scene because I love a good fight scene. And I love Elnor. But then there came the point where it was just he and the creepy sister. They go to have hand-to-hand combat. And I was dissatisfied that he attacked. I felt that his character would have been a lot more calculative and less arrogant. I felt like him attacking first was way more arrogance than tactic. And it did get Hugh killed. That sucked, because I was really sad to see him go. He, at his dying breath, says that he needs an XB in order to get to the Queen's Chamber, which, obviously, after hearing Aaron, that's where they're going. So, I don't know. Are all of the XB executed? Have they all been killed? Who knows? I don't. So, lots of questions. So now we get to actually go to Nepenthe for my thoughts. First of all, the venomous bunny corn. I saw the bunny corn and I was like, oh my gosh, it's adorable. And then later you find out it's venomous. So I'm like, I kind of want that to be my my Patronus of venomous bunny corn. My current Patronus is a shark, so I don't know. I think the bunny corn's a little cooler. But I loved seeing the world, and I loved Kestra, and I loved that she met Picard and Soji in the woods. She kind of accidentally tells Soji that she's an android, which, at first I really thought, oh, what a bummer that Picard wasn't able to really sit down with her and explain to her the nature of her existence. But then again, having Kestra there, a character that, Soji just met, but she's also, I feel like, already a little more connected to Kestra than she is to Picard. So meeting this little girl who's really attentive and curious and honest, I think that really helped balance out how Soji could have reacted. So I thought that was a good choice. And then obviously, being that they were following her to safety, essentially, they had to continue on. So that was neat. I loved how instantly Troy just granted she knew Picard was there because he was in trouble, but then you can see that she actually understands that he's ill, and it was a beautiful moment. And I love the domestic life that these two have created. Their cute little cabin in the woods with their secret tech, and it just was so cool. I loved seeing them as parents. Obviously Troy is a lot sadder, a lot more emotional. Riker, while he probably is as well, he's just fun, silly dad, and I liked seeing them like that. Granted, it comes at the expense of them losing a kid, but I liked their family dynamic. I also really loved that this episode really gave Soji kinship, kind of she did lose her sister, but this girl acts so friendly and so she's so likable, and I just loved that she was so sisterly, and they really formed a beautiful friendship. I think that this character was a really good way to kind of help Soji understand who she can trust and what family really feels like, because now these are memories of her own. And granted, she's going to come to find that out, but all the past memories are fake. So at least this, she's going to be able to look back at this and know that she's awake and she understands, and these are memories that are hers. I do want to know who Captain Crandall is, and I want to know if he can be trusted. So I don't know if there's any mention of Captain Crandall in past Star Trek episodes or different series, but I'm just curious who he is And it's nice that he kind of knew where they needed to go, but I'm also just like, can you be trusted? But then Picard gives this great speech at the dinner table, and it's very classic Picard. And it's funny because, Will calls him arrogant earlier in the episode, and Diana, she's like, you need to be compassionate and patient and curious. And he's like, well, I also need to be useful. But I think the speech really was all of those things, and it was a good setup for it. So Soji finally trusts him, and I just loved that. But Will talks about being in the active reserves, and it got me wondering, do you think that if Riker is reactivated, do you think he could be pitted against Picard? And if that happens, what do you do? What do you think's gonna happen? I'm not saying I think that's gonna happen, but it was just a curious thought that popped into my head when he said it would have to be something big for him to come back. I also love the idea that Kestra plants about Picard and Soji becoming each other's family. Early on in the season, Picard's talking to the monks, and they're like, oh, Picard hates kids, but he really enjoys Elnor, and he gets reunited with Elnor, and it's almost like a nephew or a son. That could have been setting this up for the whole time, that, Picard thought of Data as a brother, and now he's looking after Data's child, and they could just become family, and I don't know. I think that's a beautiful idea, and I just love Kestra's character. She was really well written, really well played, and I absolutely loved Kestra's about the episode in general. I felt it was really heartfelt. It really gets you into the mind of a person who has been so abused, and she's so untrusting, and I think that having Diana Troy there was really helpful for that. I also think that seeing this happy family was really helpful for that. The idea of Soji having a family, which is going to come in handy if she does become the Destroyer. And, one of the ways she reacts to Picard in the early part of the episode where he tells her that Daj is dead was kind of hinting at potential for being kind of psychopathic, because she sheds a tear and she says whatever. And I just thought, okay, if she's allowed to harden, she could potentially become the Destroyer. And I still don't know how I feel about the name Destroyer. I still think that it's potentially, going to be a good thing. She's going to save people rather than destroy people. I think it'll be the Jadvash that are destroyed. But mind games was big in this episode as well. So I really hope that her mistrust for others doesn't point her down the wrong path. The planet has regenerative powers, which I don't know if that'll come back around in the future, but I feel like if they were going to write off a character that couldn't be saved by this regenerative planet, then maybe the planet will come in handy in the future. I don't know. Maybe I missed something, but obviously it wasn't going to cure him. It was just kind of their last attempt. And I'm always wondering about Soji's hair. She's got these gray stripes in her hair, and I feel like that has to be purposeful. I want to know why. I don't think Daj did. So why does Soji? Is it just to tell them apart? Is it a flaw in something? I'm so curious as to why that is. And then, I just feel like it is a slow burn, and I'm enjoying every little tiny moment of it. But I can understand if people are like, okay, not a lot happened in this episode, and it took forever. So I don't know. But I liked it. And, that's all I have to say. Oh, looking at next week's clip, when I saw Seven on the Borg cube, I was thinking, I wonder, do you think maybe she could become the Borg Queen? She's got so many parts in her already. She struggles with her humanity and her Borg side. And then there was that scene where there were at least 2 cables on either side of her, and I was like, oh my god, I might be right. But that's not really a whole lot for me to go on of just 2 seconds of, I wonder if she's the Borg Queen, and then seeing those cables. So, what do you guys think of that being a possibility? Have fun talking. Later.
Thanks, Holly, for those thoughts.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot of data. That was a
lot of data. Yeah, a lot to go through. We already talked about Commodore O. If she can see the future, look into the future. We're not sure yet. Hopefully there be some more explanation on that.
I think so too. She did mention also, Holly was mentioning Agnes switching allegiances and you being able to see it. Mm-hmm. And we didn't talk a lot about that. And I agree. Once Holly had said some of these things, I was really like, oh, that's a good point. Because she really did a good job of like deep diving into that. And I wanted to kind of go back to that because that was the first thing she said before she went to Commodore O. I really feel like I hadn't actually seen that, but you've got to be able to really scare the crap out of somebody in order for them to go against something as deep as that. That'd be like, telling you or I that watching Star Trek would cause cancer, but convincing us, it would be so hard. And we would actually have like a moment of, well, I guess we're getting cancer. You know what I mean? There'd that moment of it because really that's so deep into our system.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And you've got to think of a cyberneticist.
That's their life.
That's her whole life. Right. So much so that she hung out at Okinawa just doing nothing. She just kind of twiddled her thumbs because she'd rather twiddle her thumbs doing nothing that at least sort of moved cybernetics forward a little bit than go do literally anything else on the planet. And here comes Commodore O, who says, oh, by the way, just telling you this, but, robot's going to bring the end of the world.
Right, exactly.
And to have her actually buy that.
And she's not a person who, like she says, she's never been off world, so she's not like an adventurer per se. So
she's a homebody.
Yeah, she got so scared that she felt that she had to accompany Picard and to do something to stop Maddox and Picard. So
right, and clearly there was a relationship between her and Maddox.
Right.
So we're upping the ante quite a bit as to how far Girardi has been pushed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's so there's a lot there, and I don't know how they're going to play it out with Agnes, how she's going to, if she, obviously she took that hypo spray to get rid of the tracking device, but obviously it was dicey that she could have died. So maybe she's had a change of heart, or maybe she just feels so guilty. She's like, fuck it, let's get crazy.
Maybe.
So I don't know. Holly also brought out that with Hugh and the execution of all the Borg, the XBs, did all the Borg die? I don't know if that's the case. I mean, there was definitely the Romulans that were still brought back. We have Ramda the Romulan still, so we didn't see her get killed. So I don't think all the XBs were killed, just maybe whatever those 8 to 10 that Nerissa Rizzo killed.
Yeah, although I think this is the reason why we get. Well, I mean, this is a job for 7 of 9.
Sure. Yeah. No.
It's an XB goes.
Right. Exactly. And she's
7 XB.
Yeah. She's XB, and she's obviously the action hero a little bit in this. So she's an interesting character to bring in. Holly also brought up, if Riker was reactivated, would he be pit against Picard? I guess that's a possibility. I think we will see Riker again in the future, in the next, maybe not this season, but next season. But I think obviously he'd find a way to work with Picard or let Picard go or something to that nature. I think there's, Starfleet has a big enough fleet that they don't have to reactivate Picard. I mean, not Picard, but Riker.
Riker. Well, no, that actually, I said, aha, this is obviously a job for 7 of 9. Guess who else is an XB?
Picard.
And he was even specifically pointed out by Hugh.
Yes, exactly.
You and I are both XBs. That's what we call ourselves. We're XBs.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He specifically said that.
Holly also expressed the relationship between Kestra and Soji and like kind of a sisterly relationship. I think Kestra was a great character. She was that, like I said, a bridge to bring Soji back to some type of trust, some sort of that not everybody is conniving, that there's some innocence still,
Yeah.
And it's refreshing probably for Soji to see that. Holly also brought up that the Soji being destroyer, that still we don't know what that's about.
But I agree with Holly on this one. I think that what we're going to find is that Soji is the destroyer of the people who are scared and freaked out, and therefore they have reason to be scared and freaked out.
It's possible. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the whole idea.
Destroyer of fears.
Right. Well, or destroyer of the Zabash.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, if she's brought about to be the destroyer of the Zabash, then that makes some sense, obviously, that they would be a little freaked out about this.
Right. Yeah.
And, I mean, let's be realistic here. The other thing is, if you're talking about group mind wash, which is what we're talking about here, the reason why the Germans agreed to the idea of killing Jews, the reason why the Japanese agreed to killing Koreans and Chinese, is that group mind wash of they're animals, they're not real, they're going to hurt us, they're going to destroy us. Hitler started his whole campaign on the basis that the Jews had stolen all the good jobs.
Right.
So the crashed economy was all about the Jews taking over all of the good jobs and leaving nothing for the Germans.
Right.
And if they continued to go on, that would be the end all be all to the universe if we let those Jews. And so it started with a pretty reasonable, innocent-ish thing. Something you could actually understand, something you could actually comprehend. It's not right. It wasn't correct. It wasn't accurate, but it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and obviously if you can stoke those fears, and you can get enough people to believe it, you get that group mindset. I mean, like I brought up the Stanford experiment. There's also like, you look at Jonestown and, him,
We've been making Kool-Aid jokes all along because of that.
Yeah, no, it's the, drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, Jonestown's another great example of a mind brainwash, a mind groupthink. We are an amazing people if we can all get together and do things together as a team. We build civilizations. We go to the moon. As a team, we're incredible. But the problem is that we can also be manipulated as a team. We're still herd animals.
Yeah.
I
have a strong feeling against joining groups. I feel that if you join a group, you are somewhat diminishing your options and your free will. So when I became an adult, I realized I didn't want to be part of anything to establishment. I wanted to be kind of left on my own devices kind of thing. So I think I can, because the group might do something that you don't agree with, and maybe you make excuses for it. I think.
Well, and that's the threat, right? Yeah. I mean, that is totally the threat, and that's what we're talking about here, and that's what I think Picard is exploring.
Right, exactly.
The downfall of groupthink. I mean, which makes bringing in the Borg all the more lovely and elegant.
And the Borg are the epitome of groupthink.
Exactly.
They're everything of that. Yeah.
And the real truth is that's what the Borg were there to begin with. That's why they were there. That's the whole point when we brought in the Borg in the first place. That was in TNG. That was the point, was let's look at the problem with groupthink.
Right. Exactly.
Now, groupthink can be, and I mean, the Borg also show the positives of groupthink. As long as you've got a hive mind, my God, they've been building. I mean, they've taken over a good portion of the Gamma Quadrant. They've taken over a good portion of the Delta Quadrant. You know what I mean? It's like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they just keep expanding, and they can because, they're powerful. They are super powerful.
Right. Exactly. No, so that's, I mean, obviously, like you said, you can do a lot of great things as a group, but you also can completely brainwash yourselves or to believe what everyone else is. And, it's the same thing as any. It's like, Guy, nobody wears their hat like that anymore.
Right.
Or nobody wears their, they don't wear those type of shoes anymore, kind of thing, and all of a sudden that's faux pas. You don't do those things. And so, you're brought into, I mean, high school and middle school taught us those things, that there's certain things that are acceptable and unacceptable. So,
right.
It takes us very strong will to go completely against the grain. Either you're very strong willed or you're completely oblivious.
Yes. Well, and I think that's, in a way, in a top-down way of looking at all of this, that is sort of the problem we have with our society, is when the groupthink goes too far. Mm-hmm. We have all decided as a culture that there is only male and female, and there cannot be any other genders. Well, why? And then you end up with, why do you want to be a male who's a female or a female who's a male? That messes with my groupthink.
Right.
And, you end up with a problem with that, even though that has no effect on you.
Right.
You may have no vested interest into why that. I mean, it doesn't matter to me if a man marries another man because I'm interested in women, so it doesn't bother me.
Sure. Right.
But it ruins the groupthink. We had a groupthink. And homosexuality is a good one because that one keeps coming back. Cultures decide that it's okay, and then the wave comes back and they wipe it out because homosexuality was allowed in the Spartan era, in the Greek era, but then was wiped out again. And then it was allowed again in medieval times, and then it was wiped out again. And you know what I mean? It's like it keeps coming back, which, if nothing else, history says that there's something more than just people deciding they want to, do something goofy and weird to break society.
No, yeah, it's definitely it's and those people are easy to ostracize because they are unfortunately they're often a minority of the population,
right?
And it's easy to, once you see their actions, you can basically say, oh, I know this person, this person's a homosexual, this person's a lesbian, or whatever else, so
exactly.
It's very easy to pick that out, and it's very easy. And the same thing when we're talking about anything. I mean, even race, it's like, oh, this, person's black. Well, that's even easier to see because it's obviously you can't hide your skin color. So if you're living in a world where racism is, a definite thing, you can't change your skin color, at least not easily. So, you have to live in a society where people, maybe not give you jobs or trust that you're doing the right thing or treat you terrible or for doing nothing,
Right.
So,
but it doesn't fit the groupthink.
Sure.
So the groupthink on the positive side gets us to the moon.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, to the positive side. And the truth is, the reason why we can't actually wipe out groupthink in our society is because if we do, we would no longer be able to build houses. We'd no longer be able to build cars. We know, all of the things that we've built is not the will of one person. I explain this to my child all the time.
We're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Exactly. And that's a groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's like, what's the word? There's a German word for it. Oh, come on. I know this word, which means that like the ether think.
Oh, that's the
Whatever it's called.
Yeah, anyway, it'll come to
we'll all think of it at the end of the show. But the idea that Thomas Edison invents the light bulb, but also, Joe Smith invents the light bulb at the exact same time. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't communicate to each other. What happened was they both came to the realization that if you put carbon on a filament, it will burn less powerful. And if you put electricity through it and then put it in a vacuum, you know what I mean? But you had to have vacuum, you had to have carbon, you had to have filament, and you had to have electricity. So nobody invented it before because those four elements had to be put in the universe first.
Right. The word we're looking for is Zeitgeist.
The Zeitgeist. That's it. Yeah. Right. But yes, that's it. There's like this, but that's part of this groupthink, and it can backfire. We've decided that everybody with beards and goatees are bad, and all of a sudden you and I are in trouble, right?
Yes.
And so it's like, oh no. No, because that's a bad thing. The groupthink has decided that. Hey, it could be even things that are innocent and innocuous. Body hair continues to change. What's appropriate and what's inappropriate from era to era.
Yeah, look at 70s porn compared to modern porn.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but you're right. I mean, that's totally true. The body hair has totally changed. And, and that's part of this. And that's pretty innocent. It's just irritating, But you'll hear the same thing. If girls were to grow out their armpit hair, everybody looks at them like they're evil.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Right, which is kind of weird because men are allowed to grow out their armpit hair.
It's a weird thing. Who knows why that is continued to,
populate and be a thing and of course so I can kind of see that a lot of what Picard's harping on here is groupthink.
Sure.
Picking on this groupthink. I want to get back to Holly's thing because
Holly's thing
again.
We got way sidetracked. Yeah.
So I think really what we're talking about is the Destroyer being that their groupthink will be wiped out. So to some degree, they are absolutely straightforward. The Zatvash have a legit concern. If the robots show up for some reason, it will destroy their groupthink. Some aspect of their groupthink is together here.
Yeah.
And so that's what's going to be wiped out. So that's a thing. One of the other things she had talked about was family. Mm-hmm. I have seen an awful lot of deep threads about family that isn't your family.
Yeah.
This is something I believe firmly in. I have my best friend and I spend a lot of time together and hanging out, and now our kids are together, and we construe those kids as brother, sister, or cousins or something, even though there's no blood relationship between the two of us. Just we've always been very close to each other. We've always been in the same, sphere all the time. And when we had kids, the kids just grew up together.
Right.
That's just the way it goes. So they're family without being family. They're not blood related at all. I'm about to adopt another, and I mean adopt in a non-literal way, another kid from Japan who's going to stay with us so she can go to school here for a while because she wants to, and she's just going to live in our basement. But I've known her since she was 2,
Right.
And again, she's family. Even though to me, even though from my perspective, she's not even the same culture, she's not the same country, she's not the same, she's not even, at least with my best friend, we could almost say, well, at least they're both Coloradans,
Right, exactly.
Both Denverites or whatever you want to call it. With her, we're not even talking about the same country. But when she's here, she does all the things in this household she's supposed to do, and she cooks dinner, and she does her thing, she does her part, and she acts like part of this family, and she just folds right in. Sure. And there's the thing about family that isn't family, and I feel like Kestra is aiming in on this same thing.
She said, Picard could be yours. It could be basically your family.
And that really struck a nerve with me because I do adopt random people all over the place, and people are just my family, and that's the way it goes. And I don't broker any dissension on this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
My whatever you want to call her from Japan, she's my kid. Sure. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to even broker. And you'll look at her and she's clearly Japanese and I'm clearly not. And you'll be like, and I'll be like, I'm not brokering any discussion on this. She's my kid.
Yeah, right.
But like, we're not going anywhere on this. And I feel like that's a unique trait that humans have. Well, not unique, I guess. There's a lot of animals that'll do that, but I think that's a very cool trait that humans have, the ability to just absorb another person into your group. But B, I like the fact that Picard's addressing that.
Yeah.
All these people who are talking about the negativity of Picard. And I'm like, but the thing is, you're missing one of the core pieces here, which is talk all you want about negativity. They're talking about family that isn't family.
Sure. Yeah.
Non-family.
Yeah. There's plenty of people that there's plenty of people I've known that family might not be the greatest bunch of people that you want in your life. So you adopt your friends as your family, and you draw those bonds stronger than maybe your own blood relatives. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some families are abusive,
right?
And it's not worth sticking around. So it's like you're going to have to reinvent the wheel, but you can do it. It can be done. So, I agree. And I think Kestra was a great narrative tool for this episode. And I think obviously Riker and Troy in their relationship with Picard, was, you realize that they're sort of a extended family kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Soji's getting a window to a world that she's never been privy to. And, obviously the memories that she was given before are somewhat false memories, so she doesn't know what to believe, but she's seeing that there's other things that are good in this universe other than, the Nareks of the world or of the universe. So
right.
She also brought up that Soji has some gray stripes in her hair. I'm really not aware of that. I
don't know if that's her monitor being turned up that way.
Holly's very observant of of small details. A lot of things I miss, and she picks things up, and I don't realize until later. So she's very astute with that. So I'll say that she's probably 99% right on that. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, and there's a marked difference between the way Daj wore her hair and the way that Soji wears her hair. Daj wore her hair more messy and a little bit more disheveled in a lot of ways, and Soji likes to wear her hair very, very straight and clear. I think they're exploiting because Issa Barone is mixed heritage. I think they're exploiting the fact that I'm sure her hair, just like anybody who's half Asian, half white, you can either make her hair act Asian or you can make her hair act white.
Now, act Asian. Now act white.
By just treating it with different chemicals. Like you can treat it with having dealt with now various hair products for various different kinds of hair, which I never, I gotta say, just as a side note, never expected that would be something I'd be somewhat versed in. But now I've got various children that live under my roof who are of different descents, and now this becomes a thing. so
maybe her hair went to acting school. So
right, her hair went to acting school. So we'll just go there. There's the quote for the show. Her hair went to acting school. But I'm not seeing, even when I pull up pictures of Soji, I'm not seeing I see little like at the very bottom, the tails, but I can't tell if that's light or not.
I don't know.
I feel like that's like light. I feel like that's light reflecting off of her hair.
Could be. I haven't picked up on it.
Yeah, like I said, when Daj wore her hair, Issa Briones obviously clearly decided to let her hair be fluffy and weird and poof. But Soji runs her hair very, very smooth and silky, in the same manner as like many Asian people will wear their hair. And so I'm guessing that that's plausibly what we're seeing here. It's just the light reflecting off of her hair.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, actually, looking at it now, I've got a different picture of her and Narek. The first time we meet her, she's right. She's got little gray tips. Or maybe they're purple tips. They may be purple tips. Hard to tell because she's got a purple jumpsuit. So I'm not 100% sure. But I'm not gonna dismiss Holly's argument here. It definitely looks like there is a thing with her hair going on. Although I'm noticing that as Soji goes further down the show, her hair is getting more disheveled. Clearly, she's not doing her shampoo regime.
Yeah, no, she definitely, smashing through those floors in the Borg cube definitely didn't help either.
That did not help her hair routine.
No, it didn't.
She couldn't wash her hair with the right shampoo.
Right.
So one of the other things she was talking about was Crandall, and I'll go ahead and quickly answer that. There are no other Crandalls that I'm aware of in the Star Trek universe except Melissa Crandall, who went by the name L.A. Graff, and she was a novelist and wrote a lot of the novels, including Ice Trap and Shell Game. That's all I know as far as a Crandall goes. So this is either a new character in the universe, which could be true, and they may be nodding to L.A. Graff, because Graff was one of the original novelists in the 80s, 90s. And so they may be nodding to her. Or it may be the cover for some other character. So
interesting.
Pitted against Picard. She'd commented on Riker being pitted against Picard, and I disagree with that. I just don't. I personally would find that to be kind of tropey, and they've been working really hard to set up tropes and then wipe them out.
Or totally circumvent them, not even get to them. So
yeah. So I don't know if that would be a thing. I don't know what was on Raffi's screen either. I've only seen this episode once so far, which is not common for me. I usually have seen it 4 or 5 times, but I just had a busy weekend, so I haven't been able to see it again. So I'll watch it again and get a look on that screen and see what's happening. And I'll post in our Facebook group if I can find anything. I agree that Elnor attacking first was disappointing. I feel so it fits. I have this feeling about Elnor that he is still young and impetuous.
Sure, absolutely.
Sometimes he just acts and then tries to get back under his control.
Right.
He's young. He's a young booger. I mean, when I was 25, part of the reason my back is out of whack right now and my knees are out of whack is because when I was 25 and doing martial arts, it was a whole bunch of, come here, let's do this, and then throwing each other around ridiculously. And then
you find out your body doesn't twist that way.
Right. And then now my body is like, I hate you, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So I get that. That makes total sense. Learning a discipline and then screwing it up really bad. I get that.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And I am going to be with Holly on the venomous bunny corn Patronus. Yep. I'm all there. It is not as hysterical as the doggy corn or puppy corn we had. But from now on, that's puppy corn. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They're going to call this bunny corn. Then Sulu was holding a puppet corn. And I'm just going there.
That's funny.
I'm calling it now.
That's nice. Yeah. So that's yeah, she likes that one. So I don't know. That's it was funny that they was be venomous. So fluffy, but so deadly.
Although Puppicorn also apparently had antenna. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, all great thoughts, and this episode obviously is, got a lot of throwbacks to Next Generation, but also a lot of conjecture of what the future holds and everything. So obviously this episode inspires a lot of deeper thoughts than you would think, and it has such a heartwarming feel to see Troy and Riker with Picard again. It just feels great too. So that's the other side of it. So
yeah, I agree.
And Dave might be right. This might be the best episode out of the whole series. So obviously we're not finished with the series yet, but it might possibly be.
I disagree with Dave on that one. I like this episode a whole lot, and it was an incredibly good episode. But I feel like he's doing all the other episodes sucked. This one was the only good one.
He said, I think a couple episodes he saw there are some good ones. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was the one when he went down to Elnor's planet. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no, maybe
Absolute
it was
that one. Yeah.
Absolute Candor, or no, maybe it was Stardust City Rags.
Yeah.
I think that one we were saying that might have been the best. There's definitely some high points in this. I just think one of my biggest complaints about all this was the series is that it's going a little slow on the plot. It could speed it up a little bit. There could be tighten up on the script on some things. So especially the first 3 episodes, I think it kind of dragged a bit. But it's definitely picked up, and like this episode, I don't really mind that it took a little slower. I feel like, you have to take a moment to breathe and to take in the reunion of all these characters. So,
well, and I think that was what I was headed for in the very beginning too.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to give some time for Soji to recover.
Right.
And usually, and this is something that drives me crazy about modern television. Person A's entire family gets disembodied and blown up right in front of their face, and they're pulled from the room, and then immediately they go off to find the killers.
Yeah, exactly. There's no psychological damage or
there's no moment for that person to go, did I just am I covered in mom's blood because I feel like I'm covered in mom's blood?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, because these people are like, I might be covered in mom's blood, but let me go through the shower real quick and
smells like mom, tastes like mom.
In my pocket here, I'll just throw that away real quick, and then we'll get going. And you're like, come on.
Yeah. No, I get it totally. Yeah, totally get it.
So that's something I really liked about this. We stopped long enough for everybody to address that Soji is about to have a complete meltdown over this.
Yeah, and she had moment, and she had moment to heal.
Yeah. She had a moment to get her act together. I really like this. This is like, it feels like when you get hot chocolate and you actually have the time to just sit there and sip it. You know what I mean? As opposed to like just downing the thing because you got to run.
And you burn your mouth.
You hate people.
What's happening? Yeah, I agree. And we don't have too many more episodes coming up. I mean, it's 3 more episodes, and I feel they're going to keep us on a cliffhanger, or something's going to happen to get us strung into the next season.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to get some. A lot of stuff is going to. The puzzle pieces are going to fall in pretty quickly now. At least I'm hoping so.
Right.
I don't know. Well, let's wrap up this episode. We've been talking
for a zillion hours. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gone a little long, but I think we had a lot to say. Guy, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you again if they are looking for more of Guy Davis?
More of the same. You can find me at GS Davis Art. That's G as in Godzilla, S as in Supernova, Davis Art.
As in Davis.
As in Davis. Art.com. You can also find me pretty much everywhere. DeviantArt, Instagram, Twitter, even though I don't really post at Twitter very often because I don't want to get into a fight. And I know that if I post on Twitter, it's going to be a thing. But when I start producing art, I put art up on Twitter. And you can also find that on Facebook. You can also find me as part of the Rocky Mountain Geek team, and that's you can find that at www.rockymountaingeektank.com. And again, as Aaron had said before, we are broadcasting on Thursday nights most of the time when we get our act together, and that usually happens after Picard. I'm just saying, because we somehow decided Thursday night was a great broadcast night. That's not a good night for Star Trek people.
That's true. Yeah. Well, you didn't know that. We didn't know that Picard was going to come out on Thursday night. So, things happen. So definitely check out guys. Check out the Rocky Mountain Geek Tank. Like I said, check them out on Facebook, and they do have their live streams every Thursdays or most Thursdays. So, for us, for Synthaholics, obviously you can always go to our website at synthaholics.com. Check us out on Facebook. We have a great group going at Facebook.com/groups/Synthaholics. Join there and join in the chat at Picard and all sorts of other things that we talk about. You can find us on Twitter at Synthaholic Duo. You can tweet at us there. We also have, we just started a Synthaholics podcast Instagram. So that's always cool too. Instagram, I don't know. We'll put pictures of us, I guess, talking about Star Trek. I'm not sure. You can check us out there at synthaholics.podcast. That's where we're at there at Instagram. You can, if you ever want to email us and tell us your thoughts about Picard, you can email us at synthaholics@yahoo.com. So do that. And if this show is something valuable to you, please go to our Patreon, Patreon.com/Synthaholics. You can donate to the show there. And as always, a great way to support the show that's free is either to tell your friends, tell your brother, tell your mother that you're covered in her blood after she was obliterated.
And here's a finger.
And a finger, you can tell a finger about Synthaholics, or you can just share it on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. That's a great way to share. So, but we appreciate the downloading this episode and listening to us, and we always love feedback from our listeners, so that'd be great too.
And remember. Don't pander to us, kid. One tiny crack in the hull and our blood boils in 13 seconds. Solar flare might crop up, cook us in our seats. And what do you all wait till you'll be sitting pretty with a case of Andorian shingles. See if you still relaxed when your eyeballs are bleeding. Space is disease and danger, wrapped in darkness and silence.
You got the quote. All right.
Quote so we can add it in there. As a kicker. Thank you so much for having me on board, my friend.
Yes, it was great. Thank you for joining me, and we'll have to get you back a little more when Picard goes a little further along. We'll talk more about Picard. But there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to unpack with this series, so there's a lot happening. So thank you so much for listening and downloading us. Live long and prosper, one and all.
So imagine my surprise when I heard he had died in his big 50 million miles inside of Mars. Well, McCoy, my boy, come mix me a drink. Before the night's over, I'll puke in the sink, and we'll cry till we laugh, and we'll both shit our pants. You're the best drinking friend I ever